And our next speaker is Andie Vilela.
Vilela.
Sorry, I pronounced. Yeah. Why do you race babies? Understanding the motivations of people who train and race trotter horses.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here. We're at Red Wings are really interested in the human psychology and how that can help us improve our education across the organisation. But I'm going to talk to you about some of the outreach work that we've been doing alongside colleagues at the Blue Cross, BHS and many others in this room. Hopefully it won't be boring to them and still interesting to the rest of you as well. So we have seen behaviours change over the last 10 years. In particular aided by legislative change that's brought us and our advisors much closer to the owners who are on the margins of the equine industry and also on the traditional forms of education. As Kerry eloquently put, leaflets aren't going to help us change behaviours necessarily. Link days, as mentioned, and castration clinics, things like that give us an opportunity to strike dialogue with these owners and better understand their motivations. And we've definitely seen some improvements in behaviour, positive engagement with our welfare officers, treatment-seeking behaviour on a local level. But the horse crisis does mean we need to look at what we've learned from this and scale it up, maximise it, particularly with demographic change and more owners out there, potentially with less and less access to traditional service providers for horses. So what did we do? Well, we specifically looked at trotting horses and particularly because this is quite a distinct activity that's undertaken by people who come to the link days. We first of all had an internal workshop where with our welfare officers who have combined more than 30-40 years of experience working with these owners to really map out what change we want to see, what progress has been made and what are the barriers. We also have been able to hold in-depth interviews with trotter breeders and dealers themselves, some of them very lengthy, who are very pleased to tell us all about how welfare isn't really an issue, everything is in hand, and it's a very professional hobby, and I'll return to that later. And we managed to sort of qualify all that information through doing an Appleby Horse Fair investigation where Red Wings has worked alongside the RSP as part of the RSPCA operation for some time to survey horses' welfare, and also to interview owners, farriers, and trial some experiential learning techniques as well. So without worrying too much about what's on this graph, the red bars are trotters, the grey bars are driven cobs, the two principal uses of horses at Appleby, and along the bottom are some negative welfare indicators. And as you can see, the cobs have a higher propensity a higher incidence of these indicators across the board, but particularly those that are sort of acute welfare issues that we see at the fair rather than ones that potentially lead on to longer term issues. So we felt that despite having heard from our interviewees that there isn't actually any welfare issues, what we're seeing is in fact true that there are some. And here But further investigation online really showed that there's a spectrum of welfare issues. On the one hand, yes, at Appleby, where we're seeing these extreme uses of horses, but then in relation to kind of the issues we see in the wider horse-owning population, some very negligible issues. Certainly, there is evidence of empathy, evidence of pride, evidence of emotional connection with their horses. So it does beg the question what kind of human behaviour change strategies might be necessary to reach both of those groups. So in general, what have we learned so far? And I must emphasise this is really just the beginning of this area of investigation. This is a committed hobby. It's not a lifestyle choice or it's not a livelihood choice. So it's not a basis of regular income. It's literally about something that's a long-term committed hobby and forms a very deep sense of personal identity and familial prestige related to financial gain, but losing doesn't really matter as long as you have a winning horse or have managed to bred a winning horse. And influences are definitely trusted sources. So friends, relatives, and then over time we have managed to, through these days, establish ourselves, some individual welfare officers as those trusted sources. And as you can imagine, the racing industry is a real source of information. Our Our investigation also highlighted, and really importantly, some barriers to welfare organisations, and I think this is the other side of the the benefits we've had from legislative change, and that's where, apart from feeling that there's sort of a perceived lack of relevant knowledge, because us as welfare organisations can't possibly really know what is in the best interest of the horse, we're very good at advising on circumnavigating legislation though. However, there's widely held misinformation about our internal, what motivates us. And I think that's been underwritten by a history of seizing horses and prosecutions. So our opportunities for behaviour change, we really need to continue establishing trust, as we have been doing through the Link Days and similar community outreach work. But we also need to collaborate and identify those welfare champions within the community. So alongside Well Equine, Red Wings is working to develop a sort of project to highlight how farriers, who are very close to this community and is actually a natural profession for many of the enthusiastic, more welfare aware members of this community go into, is to engage with them as proxy in welfare champions. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, and I'd be happy to talk to you more in the breaks. Thanks.